The sun had just begun to set on Earth when the world suddenly changed forever. Humanity was used to wars, battles, and struggles, but nothing could prepare them for what came from the stars. It all started when Captain Jason Parker and his team were sent on a mission. They were told to investigate a strange signal coming from deep space, a distress signal from a distant world. Little did they know, this mission would change their lives and humanity's future forever. Jason was a skilled soldier, trained to handle any kind of threat, but nothing in his training could have prepared him for the Zithians. Their ships were sleek, fast, and dangerous, unlike anything Earth had ever seen. The Zithians were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors, but their true power was still a mystery. Now they had come to Earth. The attack came without warning. Jason and his team had landed on a desolate planet to investigate that signal when a fleet of Zithian ships appeared out of nowhere, the sky filled with their dark shapes, moving fast and silent. It was too late to call for backup. The Zithians had already surrounded them. In the chaos that followed, Jason fought with all his might, fired his weapon, and dodged their attacks. His training kicking in, but the Zithians were stronger and faster. They overwhelmed his team in minutes. Jason managed to escape the initial ambush, but he was soon trapped. A sharp pain shot through his side as he was struck by an alien weapon. Before he could react, the world around him went dark. When he woke up, he found himself aboard an alien ship. His hands were bound to a cold metal chair. The walls around him were smooth and dark, a strange green light glowing from the corners. He looked around, trying to make sense of where he was. His heart raced in fear, but his mind stayed sharp. He knew he had to escape, and fast. Jason struggled against the restraints, but they were too strong. He could feel the weight of the ship moving, the hum of its engines vibrating through the walls. He could hear voices in the distance, speaking in a language he didn't understand. The air smelled strange, metallic, and foreign. He was alone, completely at their mercy. Then, the door to the room opened. A tall figure stepped inside. Jason's eyes widened. The alien commander before him was unlike any creature he had ever seen. His skin was a deep shade of gray, his body tall and imposing. His eyes were piercing, glowing with an unnatural light. He wore dark armor that covered most of his body, but it was clear this being was no ordinary soldier. The commander stepped closer, his boots echoing on the metal floor. He looked at Jason with cold, calculating eyes. "You are human," he said, his voice deep and filled with authority. "I have heard much about your kind. You are not as weak as we thought." Jason tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He had to remain calm. "Who are you? What do you want with me?" The commander smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was a smile that sent chills down Jason's spine. "I am Zarek," he said, his voice soft but menacing. "And you, Captain Parker, are going to help me learn more about your species." Jason's heart raced. He didn't know what Zarek meant, but he could feel the tension in the air. He knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. He had been captured, but he wasn't going to let this alien take control of him. He would fight back, no matter the cost. Zarek didn't seem concerned by Jason's defiance. He walked around the room, inspecting the human he had captured. "You are strong," he said thoughtfully, "but I believe you have more to offer than just strength, your mind. It will be useful." Jason gritted his teeth. He couldn't let his guard down. The alien commander had an unsettling calm about him, and Jason had learned long ago that when enemies acted like this, it usually meant they had a plan, one that involved more than just physical strength. Suddenly, Zarek stopped and turned back to Jason. "I will give you a chance, human. Show me your strength. Prove that you are worthy of more than just being a prisoner." Jason narrowed his eyes, confused but also wary. "How?" Zarek reached out and placed his hand on the back of Jason's chair. Jason felt a strange energy surge through his body. It wasn't painful, but it made him feel weak, almost as if his muscles were shutting down. He tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. Zarek was using some kind of technology to control him. "You will find out soon enough," Zarek said with a smirk. "I have many ways of testing you." Jason's mind raced as the alien commander walked out of the room, leaving him alone in the cold silence. He knew that this was only the beginning. Fight for his life and for humanity was just starting. Jason sat in the cold, dimly lit room, his mind racing. His arms were still bound to the chair, and his body felt heavy, like something was keeping him from moving freely. The strange energy Zarek had used on him still lingered, making it hard to focus. But Jason knew he couldn't afford to lose control. He needed to understand what was happening if he had any hope of escaping. The door opened once more, and Zarek stepped inside. The alien commander's tall, imposing figure filled the doorway, his dark armor gleaming under the green light. Jason tensed, trying to prepare himself for whatever was coming next. Zarek walked toward him, his heavy boots echoing on the metal floor. He stopped in front of Jason, studying him closely, like a scientist examining an experiment. The silence in the room was thick, and Jason could feel the tension building. He had to keep his composure. "You're not like the others," Zarek said after a long pause, his voice deep and cold. "Most humans would have already broken by now. But you're different." Jason glared at him, refusing to speak. He wasn't going to let Zarek see any weakness. The alien commander seemed to enjoy the silence, letting it stretch on. Finally, he broke it. "Your species," Zarek said, pacing in front of Jason, "has always fascinated me. You are small, weak, and fragile compared to many other species in the galaxy. Yet, you survive. You fight, and sometimes you even win." Jason remained silent, his mind working quickly. He knew that Zarek was trying to get inside his head, to learn what made humans tick. The more he talked, the more he gave away about his own intentions. "I've spent years studying your kind," Zarek continued. "Well, I've watched how you respond to threats, how you adapt, and how you learn. It's impressive, but I need more. I need to understand how you think, how you react when pushed to the edge. That's where you come in, Captain Parker." Jason's stomach tightened. He had a sinking feeling he knew where this was going. Jack was going to use him as an experiment, testing the limits of what humans could endure. He had no doubt that. The commander was prepared to push him further than anyone had ever been pushed before. "What do you want from me?" Jason asked, his voice steady, but filled with tension. He couldn't let the alien know he was afraid. He had to stay focused. Zarek turned to face him, his eyes gleaming with cold amusement. "I want to see if you can be more than just a soldier, Jason. I want to see if you can be a weapon." Jason's heart skipped a beat. He had expected some sort of twisted experiment, but this. Zarek wasn't just interested in breaking him. He wanted to turn him into something else, something dangerous. "Your people are nothing more than tools to us," Zarek said, his voice soft but laced with menace. "But I believe you can be more. If you prove your worth, if you show me that you have what it takes, I can make you a part of something much bigger than yourself. You will be powerful, unstoppable." Jason shook his head, refusing to be intimidated. "I'll never be a part of your plans. I'll never work for you." Zarek's eyes narrowed, his expression hardening. "You misunderstand, human. I'm not asking you to work for me. I'm offering you a chance to become something greater, a chance to leave behind your weakness and embrace your true potential." Jason clenched his fists, anger rising within him. He wouldn't let Zarek manipulate him. He couldn't. "I don't want any part of it. I'm a soldier, not some weapon." The alien commander smiled, as if he'd been expecting this reaction. "You will learn, Captain Parker. You will learn what it means to be truly strong. And when you do, you'll realize that this was your destiny all along." Jason didn't respond. Couldn't. Zarek's words were nothing more than empty promises, meant to break him down, to make him doubt himself. Jason wouldn't fall for it. But he knew that staying silent wouldn't be enough. He needed to act. He needed a plan. Zarek's smile faded, and he stepped closer. Looming over Jason, "You have two choices, human," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You can cooperate with me, or you can resist. But no, this you won't win. Resistance will only make it worse for you." Jason's heart pounded in his chest. He had to buy time. He had to find a way out of this. But there was something about Zarek that made him uneasy. The commander wasn't just powerful. He was smart, manipulative. Jason knew he had to be careful. "I'm not afraid of you," Jason said, forcing the words out. He could feel his body responding to the alien's presence, the oppressive weight of Zarek's power pressing down on him. But he refused to show weakness, wouldn't give in. Zarek's eyes glinted, and for a moment Jason saw something like respect in them. It was fleeting, but it was there. "You're stronger than I thought," the commander said, turning away. "We'll see how long that strength lasts." With that, Zarek left the room, leaving Jason alone once again. The door slammed shut behind him, and Jason was left in the darkness, his thoughts racing. He knew one thing for sure: he couldn't let Zarek win. He couldn't let the commander turn him into a tool for the Zithians' plans. But he also knew something else. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about resistance. It was about fighting back and proving that humanity was more than just weak, fragile creatures. They were a force to be reckoned with. Jason sat still, staring at the cold metal walls of his cell. His mind raced with thoughts of escape, of fighting back, but each plan seemed impossible. Zarek's words echoed in his head, each one laced with threat and control. "You can cooperate, or resist," the commander had said, "but you won't win." Jason clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. He couldn't let fear take hold of him. His training told him to remain clear-headed in moments like this, to find a way out, no matter the cost. But the more he thought about Zarek's power, the more hopeless it seemed. How could he fight back against an alien commander with such control over him and his surroundings? Suddenly, the door to his cell opened, and Zarek walked in. The commander's presence was as imposing as ever, his dark armor gleaming under the dim lights. He didn't speak immediately, just stood in the doorway, watching Jason like a predator sizing up its prey. "I see you've been thinking, human," Zarek said, his voice calm but carrying a sense of authority that made Jason feel small. "I hope you've come to realize that resistance is futile. You can struggle all you want, but you will eventually submit to me." Jason stood up, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'll never submit to you. I won't be a part of your plans." Zarek stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he studied Jason. "You will. It's just a matter of time. Every human I've encountered has eventually bent to my will. You are no different." Jason felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had to hold on to his resolve. He couldn't let this alien commander break him, no matter how powerful or manipulative he seemed. Zarek reached out and pressed a button on the wall beside the door. Suddenly, a hum filled the air, and Jason felt the temperature drop. He shivered, his breath becoming visible as the air turned cold. Zarek's smirk widened as he observed Jason's discomfort. "This is a small demonstration," Captain Zarek said. "I want to show you just how much control I have. You see, I don't need to physically harm you to break you. I can control your environment, your mind. Everything is within my reach." Jason fought to keep his composure, even as the cold began to bite at his skin. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice shaking only slightly. "I want you to see your limitations," Zarek replied. "I want you to understand that you are nothing but a tool, a means to an end. You are part of something much bigger than yourself. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for you." Jason's mind raced. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about retaining his humanity, his sense of self. Couldn't let Zarek strip that away from him. Had to keep his strength, no matter how much the alien commander tried to break him down. But just as the cold seemed unbearable, something unexpected happened. Zarek snapped his fingers and the cold instantly stopped. Jason's breath returned to normal and the shivering stopped. The alien commander watched him closely, almost as if he were studying a specimen under a microscope. "You see," Zarek said, "I can control everything. Your comfort, your pain, your fear, all of it is mine to control." He stepped closer, his gaze unblinking. "And I will make you understand that soon enough." Jason didn't reply. He knew there was no point in trying to argue. Zarek wasn't interested in words. He was interested in breaking Jason's will. "Let me show you something," Zarek said suddenly. "Follow me." Jason hesitated, but he knew he had no choice. He followed Zarek down a long corridor, the metallic floors echoing under their footsteps. The walls were smooth and cold, lined with strange symbols Jason couldn't understand. The further they went, the more unsettling the place felt. They stopped in front of a large chamber, and Zarek motioned for Jason to enter. Jason stepped inside and froze. In the center of the room was a large viewing screen. See his own face, as if he were standing in front of a mirror. But this wasn't a reflection, this was something else. Zarek stepped beside him. "This is a recording," the commander explained. "A recording of your mind, your thoughts. I can see everything's your deepest fears, your memories. I can use them against you." Jason's eyes widened. "What is this?" "You can't," Zarek interrupted. "I have access to everything you've ever experienced. Every pain, every fear, every regret. All of it is mine now." Jason felt his heart race. The idea that Zarek could invade his thoughts, his very memories, was terrifying. How could he fight back against something like that? Zarek continued, "This is just the beginning. I want you to understand the power I hold over you, Captain. I will break you. It's only a matter of time." Jason struggled to breathe, trying to remain calm. He couldn't let Zarek see his fear. He couldn't let the commander break him. But deep down, Jason knew this wasn't going to be easy. Zarek had control over everything: his body, his environment, and now his mind. It felt like there was no escape. Suddenly, the viewing screen went dark. Zarek turned to him, a cold smile on his face. "That's enough for now," he said. "But remember this, Jason. I control everything here. One way or another, you will submit." Jason stood frozen, feeling the weight of Zarek's words. But even as the alien commander's presence loomed over him, Jason refused to give up. He didn't know how yet, but he would find a way to fight back. He had to. Jason was no stranger to fear. In his years of service, he had faced countless battles, and each time he had emerged victorious. But none of those challenges had prepared him for what he was facing now. Zarek's ability to control his environment, to invade his mind, left him feeling vulnerable in a way he had never experienced before. It wasn't just the physical struggle, it was the psychological battle that threatened to break him down. Jason spent days in his cell, alone with his thoughts, as Zarek's experiments continued. Each day brought a new test, a new form of torment. Sometimes the temperature dropped so low that Jason's teeth would chatter uncontrollably.
Ass.
Other times, the lights would flicker, and strange noises would fill the air, making him feel as though something was watching him from the shadows. The worst part, however, was the way Zarek seemed to know his every move. There were moments when Jason would try to focus on a way to escape, only to find that Zarek had anticipated his thoughts. The alien commander would appear, almost as if he were reading Jason's mind, and remind him that there was no escape. "You can try to fight," Zarek would say with a cold smile, "but in the end, you will break. Every human does." Jason refused to give in. The commander's words were meant to shake him, to make him question his strength. But Jason wasn't about to let that happen. He'd been through too much too. Let an alien commander twist his mind. One evening, after what felt like an eternity of isolation, the door to Jason's cell opened once more. Zarek stepped inside, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the human soldier. Jason stood up, trying to keep his posture strong, but the exhaustion from days of confinement weighed heavily on him. "Are you ready to cooperate yet?" Zarek asked. His voice smooth and confident, Jason met his gaze without flinching. "I told you before, I won't cooperate." Zarek's smile widened. "That's disappointing. You have so much potential, and yet you insist on resisting." "The power I could offer you." Jason shook his head. "I don't want your power. I want my freedom." Zarek's expression darkened for a moment. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Jason stood his ground, refusing to back down. The commander's eyes locked onto his, and for a brief moment there was an unsettling silence. Then, without warning, Zarek activated a device on his wrist. A sudden shock of pain ran through Jason's body, causing him to gasp. It wasn't physical pain, at least not entirely. It was more like an overwhelming force pushing against his mind, trying to break him from the inside out. And his thoughts became a tangled mess. Jason gritted his teeth, fighting against the onslaught. He wouldn't let Zarek control him. He had to stay strong no matter what. Zarek stood over him, watching the human struggle with a detached curiosity. You see, Captain Parker, I can break you without ever laying a finger on you. Your mind is just as vulnerable as your body. Once I have control over both, you will be mine to command. Jason fought to regain control, forcing himself to clear. His mind, the pain was unbearable, but he refused to scream. He refused to give Zarek the satisfaction. His thoughts flashed to his team, to Earth, to everything he was fighting for. He couldn't let it all be for nothing. Slowly, the pain began to fade. Jason took a deep breath, his mind returning to focus. He wasn't going to lose himself, too. Zarek wouldn't let the commander win. Zarek seemed to sense the change. He looked at Jason with something resembling amusement. Impressive, he said. Most would have collapsed by now. But not you. You're stronger than I thought. Jason didn't respond. He wasn't interested in Zarek's praise. He only wanted one thing to escape. And he knew he couldn't do it alone. Zarek turned to leave, but paused at the door. It will break eventually, he said, his voice soft, but filled with certainty. It's only a matter of time. Jason watched him go, feeling the weight of his words settle in. Zarek was confident, but Jason couldn't afford to let doubt creep in. Couldn't let the commander's mind games get to him. As the door closed behind Zarek, Jason's mind began to race. Had to find a way out. The isolation, the mind games, the pain, it was all part of Zarek's plan to wear him down. But Jason was done playing by the commander's rules. He had to fight back. But how? Days passed, and the tests continued. Jason's resolve was being tested like never before, but he refused to let Zarek win. He knew that if he could just find a way to communicate with his team, if he could somehow warn Earth, maybe there was a chance to turn the tables. One evening, as Zarek left him alone in his cell once more, Jason noticed something different. A faint noise came from the corner of the room, a soft clicking sound. Jason strained his ears, listening closely. It was subtle, but it was there. He stood up, moving cautiously toward the sound. As he reached the wall, he saw a small panel. Hidden in the corner, his heart raced. Could this be his chance? Without wasting another moment, Jason began to work on the panel, using the few tools he had at his disposal. It took time. He had to be careful. Precise, but finally, the panel clicked open. Inside, he found a small communication device, hidden. Away, his fingers trembled as he powered it up. The device was crude, but it would do. He had to send a signal, any kind of signal, to Earth. He had to warn them about Zarek and the Zithians. Jason took a deep breath, his mind racing with possibilities. This was his chance. He wasn't going to let it slip away. As he sent the message, he realized something important. He wasn't alone anymore. His team, Earth, humanity, they were all with him in this fight. And no matter what Zarek had planned, Jason wasn't going to give up. Jason's heart raced as the small communication device blinked to life in his hand. For the first time since his capture, he felt a flicker of hope. The device wasn't much, but it was something, a chance to reach out, to send a message to Earth, to warn them about the Zithians. Wasn't alone anymore. Had a plan, and now he had to make it work. The alien ship was quiet, but Jason could feel the tension in the air. He knew Zarek was always watching, always waiting for him to make a mistake. But this time, Jason wouldn't make one. He couldn't afford to. With his heart pounding in his chest, he focused all his energy on sending the message. It wasn't easy, and every second felt like an eternity. But eventually the message was sent. It was a simple one. Warning. Zithian, fleet danger, Earth, prepare. Jason didn't know if it would reach its destination or if it would be intercepted. But it was all he could do for now. I had to trust that his team, whoever was left, would understand and respond. The message was a long shot, but it was the only chance he had. After sending the message, Jason turned his attention to the next problem: how to escape. He couldn't stay here forever. Zarek would eventually find out what he had done, and when that happened, the consequences would be severe. Jason had to act fast. It wasn't going to be some puppet for Zarek's twisted experiments. He had to get out of here, and he had to do it now. Jason spent the next few days keeping a low profile, pretending to comply with Zarek's demands. The commander's tests continued, each one more mentally exhausting than the last. But Jason kept his mind sharp, looking for any opportunity, any weakness in Zarek's control over him. The commander's arrogance was his greatest flaw. Zarek thought he had already broken Jason, but Jason knew better. He was far from finished. On the 4th day after sending the message, something unexpected happened. Jason was led out of his cell by 2 Zithian guards. They didn't speak to him, just marched him down the cold, dark hallways of the alien ship. Jason's heart skipped a beat. He had been in this ship long enough to know that this was no ordinary assignment. Whatever Zarek had planned for him now, it was serious. The guards led him to a large, open chamber. The room was dimly lit, the walls lined with strange symbols that Jason didn't understand. In the center of the room stood Zarek, his back turned to him. He was speaking with another figure, an alien that looked even more intimidating than the others. The figure was tall, its body covered in black armor that seemed to absorb the light. Around it, the figure turned slowly, its glowing eyes locking onto Jason as he entered. Zarek didn't look at Jason right away. He stood there, his arms crossed as if waiting for something. The other figure, a new face in the alien fleet, stepped closer to Jason. "Captain Parker," the figure said, its voice harsh and metallic. "You are to be examined." Jason's stomach tightened. This was that Zarek was ready to begin the final stage of his twisted experiment. He didn't know what was going to happen next, but he had a feeling it wasn't going to be good. His mind raced. Couldn't afford to wait any longer. Suddenly, a thought flashed in Jason's mind. He had a weapon, his knowledge. Zarek had underestimated him before, thinking he was just a soldier, a prisoner. But Jason was much more than that. He had been trained to think under pressure, to stay one step ahead of his enemies. And now he had to use that training to survive. "I won't cooperate," Jason said loudly, his voice steady, even though his heart was pounding in his chest. He couldn't let them see his fear. Zarek turned to face him, his eyes narrowing. "You have no choice, human. You will cooperate, or you will suffer." Jason clenched his fists. The alien commander was getting too confident, too certain of his power. This was his mistake. Jason's training had taught him that a good soldier never shows his hand too soon. He had been patient, waiting for the right moment. Zarek stepped closer, his voice low. "You are nothing but a tool to me, Captain. Your mind, your body, they are mine to control. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for you." Jason didn't answer. He stood there, his gaze locked onto Zarek, trying to hide the growing fear inside. This was it. This was the moment when everything changed. Suddenly, without warning, the ship shook. The lights flickered, and Jason stumbled forward, grabbing onto the nearest support. He could hear alarms blaring in the distance, and the sounds of chaos began to fill the air. The guards who had been standing behind Jason began to move quickly, their attention diverted by the noise. Jason's eyes widened. It was happening. Zarek turned quickly, his face filled with anger. "What is going on?" he demanded, his voice harsh. Jason didn't wait for an answer. He saw his chance. The guards were distracted, their focus on whatever was happening outside the room. With a burst of energy, Jason pushed past them, sprinting toward the door. He had to escape. The guards reacted quickly, but Jason was faster. Under one of their outstretched arms, using his momentum to knock the other guard into the wall, he didn't stop running. His heart raced, his mind focused only on getting out of the ship. He could hear Zarek's voice in the distance, calling for reinforcements, but Jason didn't care. He had one chance, and he wasn't going to waste it. He burst into a hallway, running as fast as he could. The ship was in disarray, the crew scrambling to deal with whatever had caused the alarms to go off. Jason didn't know if his message had reached Earth, or if this was just the chaos of war, but he didn't care. He had to keep moving as he ran. He saw more guards ahead. They weren't prepared for him. Jason quickly ducked into a side passage, hoping to avoid detection. He wasn't sure how much time he had, but he knew he couldn't stop now. Finally, after what felt like hours, he found himself at a large bay door. He He wasn't sure if it would open, or if it was even the right place to go, but it was his only option. With trembling hands, he activated the control panel. The door slowly began to open, revealing the vast emptiness of space beyond. This was it. Jason had no choice but to jump. Jason's heart pounded in his chest as he looked at the vast emptiness of space before him. The bay door had opened, revealing the cold, black void that stretched out as far as the eye could see. His mind raced, but there was no time to think. There was no going back now. The alien ship was in chaos, and Jason knew it wouldn't be long before Zarek and his forces regrouped. He had to move quickly. He took a deep breath, pushing away the fear that threatened to paralyze him. This was his chance. He wasn't going to let it slip away. With one last glance back, toward the darkened corridor he had escaped from, Jason sprinted toward the edge of the bay. Didn't know where he was going, but anything was better than staying on that ship. As he reached the edge, he hesitated for a moment. Looking down at the vast emptiness below, there was no way to predict what would happen next. He wasn't trained for spacewalks, and he had no idea how far the nearest escape pods were. But he knew he couldn't waste time. Every second counted. Without thinking twice, Jason jumped. The cold air rushed around him as he plunged into the emptiness of space. For a brief, terrifying moment, he thought he would be lost forever in the void. The ship's gravity had no hold on him now, and he felt weightless, floating like a fragile speck in the vastness of space. But then he activated the emergency thrusters on his suit. They were crude, but they worked. Slowly, he began to move, pushing himself away from the alien ship. The dark expanse stretched out in all directions, but Jason focused on moving forward, his heart racing with every second. His mind flashed back to everything he had learned during his time aboard the ship. Zarek's words echoed in his mind. "You are nothing but a tool, a means to an end. You will break." Jason clenched his fists, anger building inside him. Zarek had underestimated him, thinking he could break his spirit. But Jason wasn't broken. He was stronger than ever. The escape wasn't easy. Jason had to fight the silence, the isolation, and the overwhelming fear of the unknown. But the thought of Earth, of his team, of everything he had left behind, kept him moving forward. He couldn't stop now. He wouldn't let Zarek win. As he drifted farther away from the alien ship, Jason saw a faint light in the distance. It was small, but it was a sign he wasn't alone. The light grew brighter as he approached it, and he realized it was a nearby vessel. Likely one of Earth's escape pods or ships sent to rescue him. Jason activated the pod's emergency beacon, signaling the ship for help. Within moments, the vessel locked onto his signal. The doors of the escape pod opened, and a figure appeared in the doorway, reaching out to him. It was one of his team members, Sarah, a fellow soldier he had trained with back on Earth. "Jason," Sarah called, relief flooding her voice. "You made it." Jason didn't answer right away. His body was exhausted, and he could barely hold himself up as he floated toward the open pod. But the sight of Sarah and the safety of the pod filled him with a new sense of hope. He was going to make it. He was going home. Sarah pulled him inside, helping him steady himself. The door closed behind them, and the pod shot away from the alien ship. Jason collapsed into one of the seats, his body finally giving way to the exhaustion that had been building for days. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to collect his thoughts, but there was no time to rest. "The mission wasn't over yet, Sarah," Jason said, his voice hoarse. "We need to get back to Earth. Warn them about the Zithians." "I know," Sarah said, her expression serious. "We've got the message. We're already on our way." Jason nodded. He didn't need to say more. The mission had been a success. They had escaped, and now they had the information they needed to warn humanity. The Zithians were a threat, and they would stop at nothing to conquer the galaxy. But now, thanks to Jason's actions, Earth would be ready, as the escape pod hurtled through space. Jason's thoughts turned to Zarek. The alien commander had underestimated him, but Jason had proven that humans were not so easily defeated. They could endure, adapt, and fight back. Zarek may have controlled everything on his ship, but Jason had shown him one undeniable truth. Humanity's strength wasn't just in their body, it was in their will to survive, to resist, and to never give up. Jason leaned back in his seat, his eyes on the stars outside the pod. The battle was far from over. The war against the Zithians was just beginning. But Jason knew one thing for certain. Humanity was ready. They had fought against impossible odds before, and they would do it again. This time they would not be alone. The message had been sent, and Earth was coming.